Okay. Right. So we see a countdown.
Okay.
All right. Greetings and thank you, William, for hosting this session from our STEM studio at our STEM for All Makerspace at Daman Mall. Right. So we are here to celebrate World Science Day. This is a very interesting and very significant day as it is endorsed and by the UNESCO, that is to recognize the importance of science and technology in society. Right. So for the past 3 years, STEM for All Makerspace, together with all our STEM partners, we've been doing lots of programs. Of course, the first year was exciting because we did it everything physically. That is the pre-COVID years. Lots of fun, lots of activities to engage kids. Last year we did it online, and this year we are doing it online as well. So we have lined up a series of activities for 4 days, or rather 5 days, from the 10th to the 14th. And we're very privileged to have three or four or five distinguished speakers with us today, all right? And, let me introduce to you the topic that we're going to cover today, right? So, this is part of the series of webinars and quizzes and STEM explorations that we are going to broadcast through our various channels. So, today's program, we're calling it Learning STEM Virtually the Fun Way, right? So, I mean, as we all aware, there's plenty of programs, plenty of apps, and new ways of teaching science through the various devices and tools that we have. So we have the first topic on Science Launch Pack, and this will be presented by the speakers from Britannica. Then we will talk about, we'll have another topic on Science Adventure. This is on behalf of University Bookstore Malaysia. And finally, we have a storytelling session by Ratna from Leeds Learning Academy. Right. So these three speakers will talk about how we can engage and interact with kids, and most importantly, the takeaway value is that look here, there's plenty of materials, there's plenty of programs, to engage kids in learning science the fun way. Right. So without further ado, let me introduce to you the first speaker. Yeah, and the first speaker will be Miss Hannah from the training and development. She's the training and development officer of Britannica Digital, based in Australia. Hannah is an experienced primary school teacher with over 15 years of experience in teaching in Catholic high school system. She holds a bachelor of degree and is currently completing a graduate diploma in digital education. Right. As we go along, Hannah will definitely introduce more about herself and the work she does. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Hannah to present her topic, please.
Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen quickly. And I should say I've actually just completed my graduate diploma, so I'm now completely qualified in my digital education.
Congratulations, Hannah.
Thank you very much. All right, so yes, as Ramesh said, I'm the Training and Development Officer for APAC. So I train throughout Australia, Asia and New Zealand. And I provide a lot of training on products as well as specialist sessions like the one I'm going to share with you today. So today we're going to focus on Britannica Launch Packs, and it's our science resource, and I'm taking the lens of problem-based learning to show you how Launch Packs works nicely with this particular teaching technique. So I thought I'd start with a bit of an introduction about what problem-based learning is, and then we can go into the resource and I'll explain a little bit more about Launch Packs and what they actually are as we get into the session. So problem-based learning is focused on real-world problems. It's where the students will solve some kind of problem that relates to their real world, be it their community or their school. It is also focused around the student. So it's very student-centered as opposed to being teacher-led. The students very much lead the learning process. It involves and develops the skills of problem solving, constructivist thinking, communication, socialization and collaboration. So there's a lot of social interaction involved in it, research, and of course, critical thinking. It is multidisciplinary, so it focuses across a number of subject areas. It's not subject specific, although the example I'm sharing with you today is science-based. It can actually go across many subjects, and the students are very motivated to learn in this scenario or in this type of learning technique because it has a real world impact, and therefore they're solving something that's really important and has consequence in their lives. So therefore they're much more engaged and motivated to learn. So the best practice for problem-based learning, I'd like to go through some of the key points here. So the first one is that you have to begin with a real world problem. As I said, this may relate to a neighbourhood or a community problem or something really within the school arena as well. And that way then the students feel a real sense of accomplishment, they're engaged, it relates to their real world experiences and knowledge, and they will be much more motivated to work through the problem and try and find a solution. The scope of the activity should be decided with the students, and you need to take in account their age, any prior experience they might bring to the actual activity, and that also includes prior experience that relates to problem-based learning. So whether they've actually participated in this type of activity before. The problem should be open-ended, so there should be no one right answer. There should be multiple opportunities for children to achieve and accomplish some kind of solution to that particular problem. They will work collaboratively with the teacher. So the teacher is more like a guide on the side rather than being that sage on the stage type role. And to collaboratively work together to decide on the project goals and what they aim to achieve. They will decide on due dates, the types of materials that the students would use, and the different steps and actions that they may actually take throughout the project. The other thing they could also have input on is the final product or solution that they present, depending on how big a product or small. The main focus of problem-based learning is actually the process of problem solving and trial and error, and the students interacting and coming up with the solutions. There is less focus on the actual solution, but we want to focus on the process there. As I said, the teacher is the guide on the side. They're there to answer questions, perhaps redirect the students' learning a little bit, and just provide them with support as they go through this process, because the actual learning is done through that discussion and interaction. And I think I've just briefly mentioned that the final product can be small, it can be a letter, it could be some piece of writing, or it can be a really big type of product, such as a multimedia type presentation, or they might create some type of video storytelling project. The main focus or the purpose of problem-based learning is that process rather than the actual final product. So problem-based learning process starts with the definition of the problem. So I will show you the problem that I'm going to focus on in a moment. Then the teacher will explore with the students their prior knowledge. They could do this, for example, in a KWL Q chart, which identifies what they know, hence the K, what they want to know, which is the W, and then it identifies what they actually learn and their conclusions at the end of the lesson or the unit that they're studying. They need to determine what they're going to learn and where and how they will solve that. So that's part of the materials, the due date, what resources they're going to use and things like that. Finally, they'll evaluate their possible solutions and look at how successful they were. They'll evaluate the process that they undertook to get to that particular solution. And then they will solve the problem and report on their findings. And part of step 5 There may also be new questions that arise from that final step, and that could lead into another problem-based learning process that the teacher could conduct with those particular students. So in today's session, as I said, I'm going to have a look at Britannica LaunchPack Science. And the main problem that the students in this example will be researching is how they might limit the transmission of cold and flus among students. Given the world we live in at the moment, this topic is obviously very relevant. Students in Australia have just returned back to school, and this is a key idea that the students need to think about how they can prevent that transmission. Today's example will focus on a year 6 to 8 pack. It's a middle school resource, but the actual Britannica LaunchPacks resource is a K to 12 resource. So there are materials suitable for younger learners right up to your senior and secondary students that can access those different packs. As I said, it will focus on the science resource, but we also have a Britannica LaunchPacks in humanities as well. So I'm just going to minimize my slideshow and come across to the science resource. Now, Britannica LaunchPacks present collated pieces of content within packs, and you can see some of the titles as I scroll down the home page here. And then within a pack, you can see the different types of content. So they contain a variety of content. There is text content like articles and primary sources, as well as visual and auditory content like images and videos. There are also some external websites that are included in the packs. Now, I have created a pack for this particular example, so I'm just going to go to my personal account and open up the pack that I created. So the great thing with LaunchPacks is the different resources within the packs can actually be completely customized. You can edit the types of content within a pack to suit your students' needs. So that includes removing types of content that might be outside the scope of the lesson, or adding additional worksheets and activities. I know, being a teacher myself, that I had great resources that I can actually add to a pack to be used in conjunction with the Britannica materials that appear in this pack. So I'll just change the view so it's a little bit more organized for you to see those different resources. And starting in the top left-hand corner, what I have done here is added an individual note to this pack. So I've basically outlined for the students the problem that they're going to be solving, be it that transmission of cold and flu viruses. They are to create a multimedia presentation, and it's also got the due date, as you can see in here. And the last thing, I've just made a little note about an assessment that appears further down in the pack for them to go and review. That's a document that I actually uploaded to this pack, and it obviously identifies how I will be assessing them when they present their multimedia final product. Now, within this pack, the first few items you're seeing are all articles. And as I scroll down a little further, you can see that I've actually added my own individual notes to each piece of content. So you can really use the notes within the pack to direct the students to the different activities and the process that they may go through to work through this particular problem. And I've labeled these very clearly. So for this particular example, I actually want my students to start with this virtual starter activity, which is a KWQL chart. So this type of chart is pre-fillable in the pack. As you can see, I've just opened it up and it is a PDF. So when I type straight into it, the notes appear. A KWLQ chart, K stands for what they already know about the topic. So you're going to do that at the beginning of the problem. Then you will list what you want to know. These are the questions that the students are really interested in. It might be things like what prevents virus transmission, what viruses are transmissible, and they could put those questions in this particular chart. And then towards the end of the unit, they would revisit this chart and complete the last two letters, the L for what they've learnt and then the Q, identifying any further questions that they may have at the conclusion of the problem-based learning unit. So that's the first activity I would get the students to do. The next step is getting them to read the actual virus article. So they will come back and locate that article. And I've again popped a little note on the bottom here that identifies most people have been affected by some type of virus, be it COVID or another type of a virus. And so I want them to think about how viruses start. Where did they start? What causes them to be transferred between people, and to record those ideas in the main idea and detail chart. So I've made that note and I've uploaded that particular document from the graphic organizers into this pack, and that's the chart here. And again, when I click on this option, it will open up a pre-fillable PDF. So the main idea will be what viruses are, and then they'll add their supporting details in with that. Then the next step within this process is for them to look at how viruses reproduce and how they create themselves so that they can then be transferred to people and living things. So again, they're going to come back and have a look at some of the other materials in the pack. In this example, they're looking at this virus diagram, and I can actually click on that just to make it a little bit larger for you. And this particular diagram shows how cells or the virus cell reproduces. So the students will explore that diagram, and then they will go and complete the observe, infer and explain worksheet. And again, that's labeled down here, and that's another PDF document that they can easily complete within the worksheet and then save it to share with their teacher. The next thing in the process of this problem-based learning, I want the students to look at different types of viruses. So within this pack, there are a couple of different resources that highlight the different types of viruses. You would get them to read the parasite article. And when you go into an article, there are some great tools that support different learning styles. So I'll show you those when we go into the article. They can also look at the microorganism article. These are two types or two causes of viruses. And then they will explore these two different images of specific types of virus. So we've got the influenza virus and the Ebola virus. Again, these are labeled with my notes to direct my students and support them as they go through this problem-based learning process. And then I've asked them to complete a Venn diagram on those different types of viruses. So they're going to highlight the differences and the similarities between those two viruses. So at the top here, they would fill in influenza, and on this side, Ebola, and then they would make bullet points about those similarities and differences and really highlighting those. Then the next part of our process is to actually examine the core of the problem. How do we prevent viruses from being transmission between people? So there are a couple of ideas that I want them to explore within this pack. Firstly, there is an article on vaccines. Obviously, vaccines is one way that we can prevent the transmission of viruses. So they will go in and read that article. Then they can come down to this virus article here, and the little pencil icon that you're seeing indicates that I've actually made some annotations within the article. So let me click and open this article to show you. So once we're in the article, the students can just have the article read aloud to them by clicking on the play button, and that supports their ability to access the content. There is also an ability to translate the article if they would like to. And then they can come over here to where the annotations appear, and you can see on the right now that I've clicked on that, I can click through to the different annotations I've made in this article. So these are basically my highlights and my notes that I'm directing the students to read through and to prompt their research and their critical thinking about different ways to prevent that virus transmission. So there are a couple of different types of notes. The first one here, I've got summary notes. And then if I click on the green one, these are some connections that I've made with some prior knowledge or information that they may bring to this text. And then the red highlights indicate some vocabulary. So when they're highlighting the text themselves, they can actually organize their own notes and color code them so they identify those different notes, and it makes it really clear for them. So
Hannah,
using,
just
yes,
one more. Hannah, we got another 2 more minutes, Hannah.
no worries.
Okay.
So I'm nearly there. So using those notes, the students then would come back to the actual pack, and they're going to complete a cause and effect worksheet, basically identifying what causes viruses and transmits them, and what the effect has. The last few things they're going to complete are a Kahoot quiz that they can access. The Kahoot quizzes are a great way to assess students' prior knowledge, or perhaps as they're moving through the problem and the unit, they can assess their knowledge and understanding of concepts. And then lastly, they're going to revisit that KWLQ chart, the one that they filled out at the beginning, identifying what they've learnt and any questions moving forward as a result of this problem-based learning study. And that's it. That's how you conduct problem-based learning with Britannica Launch Packs. I'm just popping up my final slide for you so you have some contact details and also our eLearn site that you can visit.
Thank you so much, Hannah. That was most exciting to have all these wonderful materials at our disposal. If you will be able to share the link in the chat, there'll be people who may be keen to follow up. Yeah, so it'll be
Sure.
Yeah, if you just share the link.
Just the eLearn link, this one down the bottom here?
Right, yes. If you can just copy and paste it on our chat, that'll be great.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. That was, Hannah sharing about this wonderful pack that we have with Britannica, right? We'll reserve the questions for the end of the session, right? So we'll move on to our second speaker. And our second speaker will be Betty Tan. And she's the founder of English Corner Publishing Science Adventure Singapore, right? Betty has been a banker for 25 years before becoming a publisher and a founder of English Corner Publishing 20 years ago, right? She holds the belief that the power of comics to hook kids on reading. Okay, she has successfully sold more than 3 million copies of science adventure science comic in Singapore and Hong Kong. It's indeed a very great honor and privilege to hear Betty speak about the wonderful science pack that she, science adventure publications and resources that she has made available through through University Bookstore. And also, I have not introduced to you Mr. Keith. Mr. Keith Tong will be at hand to answer your questions as well. Okay, Keith Tong is the managing director of University Bookstore Malaysia, which is set up by his mentor to serve Malaysia's pioneer university, that is in Okay, and today they have extended to many other institutions, not just universities but also schools. So we had the privilege of having Mr. Tong visit us, and we're looking forward to more programs. So if you have any questions, Mr. Keith Tong will be pleased to answer them. All right, to you now. We will be able to hear Betty. Betty, I believe, has got a recorded session that we will be playing now. Can we pin the screen?
Ramesh, there's no sound.
Yeah, so I think our studio will be able to pin the screen and turn the volume up. If you can hear the volume now, a bit louder.
everybody. I'm Betty from English Corner Publishing Singapore. I'm a publisher and I only published one title for 20 years. And one title I have survived for till now. And what is the reason do I do from the banker to a publisher? Well, that's not fun, you know. I have wondering, you know, why is it that children find learning science not an easy thing? By the time they come to 12 years old, they have to go for an examination. It's what we call the PSLE, which is a primary school living certificate. And many did not do well. And when they go to secondary schools, again, you know, you always have only one special class for what you call pure science. And there are many reasons, you know, and I find that why did children find learning science is so difficult? So perhaps that's where I started, you know, to think that, you know, how to explain children science by words, using thousands of words. Isn't it pictures would be better to explain science content? So I started to think, and I think that, and I gave up my job just to start this publishing without knowing anything. You gather the team. Well, when I was in the bank, you got plenty of money, you know, you save a lot, but you lose all just creating what I call the science adventure. It was passion and nothing else. And I started this comic because I think that the children in Singapore would learn science in a happy manner and using a lot of illustration to explain a concept. And that is how I started Science Adventure 20 years ago. Comics is just like words. We say a picture speaks 1,000 words. What about the illustration? It talks to children. And we are able to convert a science story into comics. Therefore, that's how I started the journey. I pick up, where do I start? I say, oh, at 5 years old, what do children need to learn? And therefore, we pick up major topics like they should know all about plants. But as parents, as teachers, even in a classroom, when you give examples to illustrate what is a plant, what is a living thing, what's a non-living thing, you only may be able to do one illustration. But I think children need more than that. You know, like us, you know, we don't watch one movie in our whole life. We need to watch a lot. We need to read a lot of stories. Then that makes our life even more interesting. And therefore, children need more stories on science and how to create. Oh, there's so much things to know about. Everything around us is actually science. But do we know that? Do the children know that it's called science? And that learning science is actually fun. They need to know the facts. Therefore, we will have every topic. We talk about our body, how our body works, how to look after the body, how it functions. Same for animals, how they function. Not every animal is safe to touch. Not every plant is safe to eat. And therefore, we have so much stories over the 20 years, and every book is not the same. And children continue to read Science Adventure until today, and I can say that there are many of them actually grow up with it. We explain science in many ways. You know, we have experiments. We talk about life skills, and also that they know that certain things they cannot do. There's so much that the books actually tells them, much more than the school tell, much more from the parents, much more from anywhere. But anything that they see around them, they don't know, you know, what is that science is actually around them. Then come to language, you know. Initially, when I started 20 years ago, school says, no, comics, ban. And what did I do? You know, I said, no, is that comics so bad? Let me show you. And with the willpower I said, no, I'm going to show the power of comics. And definitely the language that we use is going to be a good language and not just a comic with no verb, with no phrase, no clause, no, past tense and present tense. We did all this, we incorporate even the language properly. And today, schools in Singapore are happy with it. Everywhere, in Australia too, in Malaysia, and everybody is reading Science Adventures, not just about science, it's also about language. And what children want to say is, I would like to say is that children who read Science Adventure start to tell stories to their parents because everything is real. And why did children want to tell the story after reading? It's because they're actually trying to confirm, something like this, why do, they will say, why is it, let's say they will ask the parents, there are a lot of questions that I have from children, they want to know, why do snakes shake the skin? What is it in a kangaroo pouch? Why seawater is salty? And how does wind occur? We get a lot of children asking questions. And if parents can't answer the questions, they will make phone calls, they will drop an email. And the next topic, we will talk about it, why the water is salty. So children also contribute ideas to me. They are so lovely. They always ask. And sometimes, they tell their parents, this work? Do you know, Daddy, this is how it happens? And therefore, that's how parents see that the power of comics makes the children learn so much, not only just learn what is all around them, they learn about animal, they know about plant, they learn about human being, they learn about themselves, they know how the liver works. So many things, So sometimes I said, some children learn to know about their body. And for 20 years, I can write lots of things about the body. And when children talk about it, I will tell the parents, they are going to be a doctor soon, Yeah. And what I can tell you is we do have topical book on all about birds. And last year, we have started using science to learn English. And this is specially made for Korea. They have been looking how to teach science and learning English at the same time. So we did this, and it's so simple. We created stories and we make children learn. We ask questions, but we use science. We use science. Everything is about science. And at the same time, children are reading. See? These are what we call proper sentences. They are reading what is a dragonfly. We talk about dragonfly, and it's very simple for kindergarten. We talk about art, and today our book is we incorporate art in science, which is STEAM. And why is art important? Even myself, I have not, in my whole life, I've never visited a museum. I find this is a joke, but it's true. I never appreciate art too. And after what I have done, parents do ask, why did you put art in? I say, when they learn art, they will learn how to appreciate you. Appreciation is what the focus is. Appreciation is my purpose. Because I'm the first person to fall in love with art. It is so important that children need to know too. And I didn't know that. And children who look at these things, was wondering. I was questioned by parents, why suddenly art? I asked, isn't that beautiful? Isn't it good? You can teach children to appreciate. And in the little stories, it tells you the history. It tells you the culture of different country. It tells you not only why, how did this come about? It tells you, see the history. In those days, we do have this trishaw in Singapore. And that's why, and is art related to science? Well, you need to have science knowledge in order to be an artist, in order to be an architect. Although you need to make a beautiful London Bridge, but how do you do it? So you need to understand science, you need to understand maths, and you must also have an artistic mind. All the time we were just looking at stamps, but no one looking at art. And when I started personally, I took over the art. I read a lot. I spent hours and hours trying to understand art. And today I can tell you, parents, for the first time, didn't even know we have 44 pieces of sculptures in our garden by the bay. They didn't know that in our botanical garden, we had Chopin. And what is he doing there? Chopin is never here. And why do we have them? So it learns from science, a little bit of art, a little bit of history, and language has not forgotten. Everything written there is in proper English, and nothing like what we think in our mind. Comics, that's broken English, they thought there's no proper language inside, but not for science adventure. With the children in mind, they become very knowledgeable. They learn English. And even we have parents from China, they love our book because they say, I learned English from Science Adventure. That's good news. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. That was the presentation by Betty. Excellent publication. I recall seeing this publication many years ago, and it's still very inspiring. So comic will never run out of fashion, and I think that, as was mentioned, it's a very interesting way of engaging with not only kids, but I think people from all ages can relate to how comics can convey a message. So wonderful that it is still being appreciated. And, we hope that these are the kind of materials that can be made available to our audiences at our STEM for All Makerspace, as well as things that we do online. Right. So we'll reserve the questions, and we'll move on to our third speaker, who has got wonderful programs and especially on storytelling. So let me give you a quick introduction to our third speaker. And she is Ratnawati Raghunathan, also known as Mrs. Dhanaraj. So she's a graduate with BSc in computer science, right? And Ratna is a graduate from University Putra Malaysia. Most interestingly, she has been engaged in the past many years dealing with children. Right? So she has been running programs to teach children the joy of learning. And she has been doing things with the British Council, having taught for more than 10 years in South Korea as well, besides Malaysia. She's responsible for rolling out a new Primary Plus product at the British Council. And I think Ratna will tell us more about the things that she does in trying to bring enrichment for kids as young as 6 years old or even younger. With that, Ratna, we would like you to share your thoughts on this topic of storytelling.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramesh. So, a very warm welcome to everyone, and thank you for having me on this webinar today. So, I was expecting more kids actually to join in, but since there are no kids, then it's probably going to be the adults who I'm going to engage with. So, I would appreciate it, is because I was thinking it was going to be an interactive session. So, whoever was able to interact together, so anyone who's watching the YouTube will actually have a better idea of what happens in storytelling. All right. So, let me start with my presentation. Okay, so today's topic is going to be tips for effective storytelling. All right, a quick introduction about myself. I'm Ratna, the principal trainer and co-founder of Leeds Learning Academy, as well as the admin for the Facebook page Yay I Can Speak To. So I've got over 15 years of experience in teaching and training. I taught at the British Council for more than around 6 to 7 years, and then I started out on my own. Right, so I've been doing this for the past 5 years, where I have trained more than 2,500 children to become confident speakers, storytellers, presenters, and creative writers. I have experience for teaching and training children from different educational backgrounds and nationalities as well. So we're going to start the presentation with a little story from one of my students. So Mr. Ramesh, would you be able to play the story? I'll stop sharing.
Story for the story series is The Monkey and the Man. There once lived a rich, greedy man who never ever cared about the poor. He had a monkey which he wanted to sell at a very high price. One day the man went out to do some business. The monkey was all alone in the house. Can you guess what happened? The bored monkey jumped and jumped and jumped all around the house and found a bag full of gold. The monkey thought the gold coin were toys and happily threw them out of the window. People started crowding around the house after seeing so many coins and saying, "That's mine! No, go away, that's mine." When the man returned from business, he got the biggest shock of his life. The coin bag was empty. When he realized what had happened, he angrily told the monkey, "You terrible monkey!" But the monkey did not understand anything at all and just giggled at the man. Finally, the man sold the monkey for a very cheap price. So parents, what's the moral of the story? What's important to us may not be to others. Do remember that. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramesh. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and let's talk a little bit about the story that you just watched. So the name of the boy, the storyteller, is actually Caden, and the story that he presented is called The Monkey and the Man. So think about the story that you watched. All right. Did you find it interesting? Yep. How did you find the story? Was it interesting? Okay. And what do you think made the story engaging to watch? So generally, when we watch a storyteller, we just say that, oh, it's really nice, it's really interesting, but we can't really identify what makes it interesting. So we need to break it down to a couple of elements. So to make a story interesting, number one, you need body language. Number two, you need to play with your voice. I think voice is one of the most powerful tools in storytelling. Number three is the speed. And number four is the intonation. All right, so let's look at the first one, which is body language. So body language is actually using your hands and your face and your body to show the different actions in a story. All right. And it is really, really, really important because it really helps the people who have difficulties listening to your story. When you have body language in a story, it it sort of elevates your story to a different level. Now, how would you act these out in terms of body language? A mountain, how would you act a mountain out? Okay, this is what you can do for a mountain. All right. Now, how would you act a warrior out? So a warrior needs to be someone who's strong and probably, upright, and then you need to have a bow and an arrow probably. All right, that would be how a warrior would look like, the body language for a warrior. Now, how would you act a naughty monkey out? Now, this is exactly what Caden was doing. So monkeys tend to scratch their sides like that. So this is what you can do. And you can also giggle like a monkey. That's also a body language for a monkey. And the last one is an angry mother. So maybe both hands on your waist and looking really serious and scolding or reprimanding a child. So that is actually what an angry mother looks like. So as you can see, body language is one of the most important characteristics of storytelling. Let's look at the next one, which is the voice. I always tell my students, voice, I think, is the key to storytelling. The way you use your voice in a story really paints the picture of how the whole story is. Now, how can you use voice in storytelling? Sometimes you have to use it loudly, softly. You have to change your voice for different characters. You got to change your voice for different emotions. And this is what we're going to look at next. Now, how would you say these in different places? Hey, did you hear that? So imagine you are in a market with lots and lots of people, a bazaar, all right? A bazaar, sorry. And how would you say that? Would you speak softly? No, you're probably going to shout, right? You're going to say, hey, did you hear that? However, imagine yourself in a library. How would you say this in a library? So the story is taking place in a library. How would you say that? Hey, did you hear that? It's going to be really soft. Now imagine yourself in a jungle, all right, with lots of mythical creatures, lots of dangerous animals. Any sound is going to trigger them and they're going to come after you. These are the predators. Now, how would you say this? You'd say, hey, did you hear? It's almost inaudible. It's like a little whisper. So you see how you need to play with your voice when you tell a story. So it's not just a monotonous tone. You really need to play with your voice with different emotions, different characters, sometimes softly, sometimes loudly. And it all depends on the content of the story. Right? Now, the next one I'd like to look at is speed. Speed, I would say, is really, really important in a story. We can't always be fast. We can't always be slow in a story. We don't always have to be at a regular speed in a story because that is not going to make a story interesting. Now, when do we change the speed of our story? Okay, it's very simple. Imagine this. What kind of speed do you think we're going to have for these words here? But clearly, it has to be a fast speed, right? Because you want to show the listener that the character is running. So you go, run, quick. So that's going to be a fast speed when you read this particular line or when you tell this particular line from a story. Now, what about this one? This is bad news or sad news. So every time you have a sad news or when one of the characters is in regret, you need to slow down and soften your voice. So this is how this would sound. The science lab was completely burned down and everyone had perished. So you see the difference between how you actually manipulate speed in storytelling and when you need to be fast, when you need to be at regular speed, and when you need to be slow. Now, for regular speed, this is actually most of the narration of the story is going to be at regular speed. You can't be fast, you can't be slow because you want people to understand what you're telling them. All right? The next one I would say is intonation. Okay, this is the final one. Intonation is how your voice moves. So it goes from a high tone or a low tone. All right. Now this is, I find, the trickiest part. Okay. When someone speaks a second language, the way they speak a second language influences the way they speak English, for example, if English is not their first language. So there's a difference between how you would read this when you have a second language or how you would do it when you have English as a first language. Now, let me show you how this would sound in school. All right. Example, in a Kebangsaan school, how this would sound. In the beginning, nearly 14 billion years ago, all the space and all the matter and all the energy of the known universe was contained in a volume less than 1 trillion, the size of the period that ends the sentence. So this is more like reading. Now, you need to change your tone to make it sound more interesting. You need to tell the story. And this is something from a science, a science fiction story. All right, this is how I would do it. In the beginning, nearly 14 billion years ago, all the space and all the matter and all the energy of the known universe was contained in a volume less than 1 trillion, the size of the period that ends this sentence. So you see the difference between how you would read it and how you would tell it. I find teaching mostly Malaysian children, this is one of the biggest challenges they face. Is actually how they would tell the story with the wrong intonation. So I train children a lot on this. All right. Now, apart from what we've mentioned, think about Cadence video. Can you add more tips for interesting storytelling? Okay. Now, number one, what you can do is you can actually add props to your storytelling. Any prop that you want to use. If you remember Cadence video, he actually had a monkey mask on. So the same story, The Monkey and the Man, had been told by many, many, many different children in my storytelling programs, and they all have a different outdo. They all have a different prop. They all are dressed up differently. Some children opt for masks. Some children opt for makeup. Some children opt to wear a tail, a prop, which is a monkey tail. Some of them would have a brown bathrobe on that looks like a monkey, a monkey skin. So every child would tell a story in a different way. But prop and attire really makes a difference in storytelling. Another important one is the space. All right, now you look, this is the space we have when we have an online presentation or online storytelling. You need to make the most out of the space that you're in. So generally when children are telling their story, I highly recommend them not to have a background, because what happens is when you have a background, you see when I'm going to the backwards, you can't really see me. So most of the time the actions that I do is going to be engulfed in the background. So best is if you're going to tell a story online, do not have a background. Then your full form will be seen. You get the way you use your hands, the way you use your face. All of this will be very, very visible to the viewers and the audience. So these are some extra tips that I can share with you about storytelling. And one more thing that I always tell my children, you need to become the story yourself. You need to become one of the characters in the story. You can't just be someone else telling a story. So if the story is about a monkey and the man, you have to become the monkey in the story. You have to become the man in the story. You have to become the lion in the story. You have to become the princess in the story. So you've got to change yourself to fit the different characters in the story. And that really helps to bring the story to life. All right. Now, you'll be wondering, how is, storytelling related to STEM? So I've been reading a lot on this, and actually we must remember that stories stick more than facts. So if you want to present some facts to children and you just show them numbers, most likely they will not remember it. But if you change it into a form of story and you tell them as a form, in a storytelling form, they're probably going to remember it better. The next thing is, remember, we are humans first, scientists later. And humans always have stories to tell. Some of the best storytellers, some of the best scientists are actually very good storytellers. Even if you go to YouTube, whatever that they're telling, some of the scientific things that children watch, it's all storytelling. It's just that they're doing it in a different way. Yep. So STEM is definitely, it benefits a lot from storytelling. And lastly, stories spark imagination. It fuels STEM breakthroughs, I'd say. The more creative, the more imaginative someone is, definitely it builds the other region, which is the science part of the brain, the logical part of the brain. Now, how can you use storytelling in STEM? These are some ideas that I found and I think would be really useful.
Ratna, just one moment. If we have one more minute, then we can go to a Q&A session.
Sure. So one of it is you create an animation thing like this, and then you use it for storytelling in STEM. And then you have something called the tomatrop, all right, which is actually having two different images, sticking them together, and then you roll them, and you can actually use that to tell stories. Okay, and then the next one is actually building something which is very much related to kinetic movement like this, and then you use it to tell a story as well. So this is how you can infuse storytelling into STEM. There are lots of programs available online, and I'm also planning to come up with more interesting stuff related to STEM and storytelling for probably for next year. So with that, we have come to the end of the presentation. Any questions? You're welcome to ask any questions. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mr. Ramesh. Back to you.
Thanks. Thank you, Ratna. Very sorry that our time has been very, very limited
That's okay.
today. Yeah. So, but definitely, I see lots of exciting things. In fact, we've got some very young kids on the platform today as well. But what we will do is maybe we'll explore. Today's session was just a teaser, just to let our audience know. Look here, there's plenty of exciting materials, and in future they could come and participate in some of the programs that you may want to do with us. I think, to be fair, I would like to, pass this to Mr. Keith Tong to explain further, because the first two speakers were actually brought in by Mr. Keith, and he's got some very exciting materials in hand, So maybe, Mr. Keith, you could just explain what else we can be doing and what should the audience know. What's the takeaway value you'd like to pass to them?
Sure. Thank you so much, Ramesh, for hosting this session. In fact, it's a really wonderful and creative session. And I really like Ratna's presentation about storytelling. Actually, you can tell on any topic, actually, from English, science, even geography, and whatever thing, as long as you can express yourself. All right, let me touch on the first one. The first one is actually Britannica launch packs. So the thing is that why they are creating a program like this, because many people study science the very traditional way and find that, hey, it's pretty boring. What's the reason of me studying science? What do I want to do actually? Now, if you see Hannah's presentation just now, it's problem-based. That means we start with a case, say, okay, you're catching a cold, there's a virus, or could it be bacteria and stuff like that. So they start with the problem, and then they give you some hypothesis. What is it that you need to find? How do you actually solve this problem? And later on, they let you read the resources and let you find the facts to solve the problems. And the kids are very involved in that. So by the time you solve the problem, all right, and by the time you actually find the answers yourself, frankly, you'll remember it for life. All right. You may teach your children later and so on, because you have a hand in it. It's not like a passive way where teachers just teach and then you just receive. But now the teachers and you are doing it together. So once you do that, it will be inbuilt in you forever. So I think what we do is that I will get Britannica to get a trial account for STEM for All, so we can do some workshops, can test it up, because the content is really massive. You can even use it to do storytelling if you want. By all means, use it. Now, if any school or kindergarten or education institution interested to subscribe it, we'll be happy to get Britannica to do a training and on a kind of a trial for your school as well. But you can just contact the STEM for All management team. They will make all the arrangements for you. All right, to do this, because we actually choose STEM for All as a partner because they are the specialists in science, technology, and engineering, maths, and stuff like that. So they are the right people to go to. I think with their expertise, they can do much more than normal people can do, because they do this every day and they do this for a living. All right. So
Maybe just to stay on that, Mr. Keith, the specialists are actually people like you and Ratna. We are the people who are very passionate about it. So in a way, we are like jack of all trades. I think William is smiling because we really fall into that category. You name it, we have it, but we do not specialize in it. So the beauty is that we would like specialists like you who are really subject matter experts.
Sure.
And that's the value that I think STEM for All Makerspace can bring. So we'd like more people to bring in contents. So today we were able to reach out to people like Ratna, people like Keith with Britannica, and what you call University Bookstore Malaysia. I think this is just the beginning, right? So to our audience, I see some young kids. Maybe to be fair to them, perhaps you have got any questions. I see Keisha. I see I can't read the name. Clarence, is it? Clarence Chong, maybe you got any questions to ask? Right? If you have any questions or any suggestions, please feel free. You can ask. You've been patiently joining us from the very beginning. I must thank you. Right?
Mm.
Okay, if there is no questions, we have already come to the end of our session. Perhaps before I pass back to Mr. Okay, maybe Keith, yeah, sorry, I saw your hand.
Okay, so just to add a little bit more, for institution who's interested in a science launchpad, contact STEM for All. Now, the things that I hope to arrange some shipment and some samples of the science adventure. Actually, frankly, you will be addicted to it. Once you start reading, you'll be addicted to it. So the things that I'll bring the stocks over on Saturday to your outlet, so that those of you around, come over, drop by, have a look at it. I'm sure you'll be interested. Now, one of the magic of this thing is that, you see, the thing is that science people view it as a difficult subject, all right? But when they start young, all right, in Singapore, they start at preschool. Most of the countries start when you're year 3, year 4, standard 4 or so only you start science, right? Preschool they started. So if the kids were to learn science and tell and relate the story by doing science storytelling through the comics, because it's very easy. They have the visual, and then as Rana was sharing, the kids will use their the natural or whatever they can use, so whether the voice, the presentation, and tell the story to the grandpa, grandma, and the parents. They feel a sense of achievement. When they do that, right, the story will live with them forever. Like, say, for example, they just ask, Daddy, why do you yawn? The father said, I don't know. Then the kid will tell you why you yawn, explaining to you from the 8 pages of the comics that they read. Then they say, Mom, why do you fart? They say, yeah, you'll start laughing again. And the kid will tell you why you fart. That kind of thing. So it makes it fun. And then talk to the chichat. Oh, the chichat lost the tail. Will the chichat die? I will explain to you whether you'll die or not. So it will be so fun now. So I'll be bringing the stocks over this Saturday morning to your place, and I'm sure you guys will have a good fun. All right. So thank you for the session. Yep.
Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramesh.
Thank you. Right,
Yeah, I'll need to leave now because I have got a class actually at 4:50,
Yes.
storytelling class.
All right.
Yeah,
Please-
so
please
thanks
go
so
ahead.
much, and please we'll be in touch. See you.
Great. Yes.
Bye.
Do
Take
drop
care.
by.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So we will
See you.
just conclude it in another 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. So firstly, our appreciation to all our participants. I think this is just the beginning. Just to keep the momentum moving, so that we are able to reach out to people and tell them, look here, there's interesting STEM contents, and these were announced in conjunction with World Science Day. Number 2, we would really like to have the programs that you mentioned at our center physically as well. So what we're doing is we're planning to do some events during the school holidays in December. Perhaps we can have more interactive or physical activities in December, right? So kids who are following, there are many more activities that we have lined up. So if you can just join us or follow us on our Facebook, STEM for All Makerspace Facebook, you'll find that daily there are programs and quizzes. In fact, there's an ongoing quiz. You can also sign up, right? So if you have not received it, just go to our Facebook. You will see the link there, and you can join the quizzes and win prizes. So every day we have got quizzes and prizes to be won from today right up to the 14th of November. All right. Maybe Mr. William would have some things to share before we sign off.
Just to say that thank you so much to everyone. We also have recorded this on YouTube, so you all can actually post and share the sessions today. And I must add, a lot of people don't really talk about World Science Day. This is actually the 4th year that we are celebrating it at STEM for All, and we are just bringing awareness to the world, and hope that all of you all can share that goodness as well. So once again, thank you, Keith, for attending. Ratna, who just left, appreciate your help, and also our first speaker just now from Britannica. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you all, and thank you to our STEM studio, Daryl, for helping with the recording and sharing of this on our YouTube channel. I can only see his hand. All right, that's a good sign. All right, and now we can see his face. That's Daryl, and he's doing a wonderful job for our video recording and managing our what he calls YouTube channel. Right, more things to come, more exciting things to come, and with that, happy World Science Day.
Happy World Science Day.
Happy World Science Day.
Right, so we shall exit.
Okay.